So ladies, gentlemen, I am back from my little holiday vacation, and oh my goodness, we've got quite a bit of a Batverse update to bring to you today. I have got some DCU news to go over. I'll be doing that in my next news roundup video, but honestly, there's quite a lot to discuss here with Matt Reeves talking about the Batman Part 2 and how it's a trilogy. We're talking about possibly Christmas in Gotham, Joker's return, possible little hints at Harvey Dent in the Batman Part 2, and also about freaking another Batverse spin-off show. Like, things never cease to surprise me. So let's get into this. Go ahead and leave a like on this video if you do go on to enjoy it, and of course subscribe for more Batverse updates like this. And it's the week of the Penguin, so obviously I hope you guys tune into my breakdown video for episode 1. And of course we've got some Penguin updates in this as well. So to begin with, from the direct here, getting some very interesting tidbits with the headline, another The Batman spin-off series is in development, confirms the Penguin producer. So initially, with regards to Arkham, we know that Arkham is in the Penguin show. You guys have probably seen my no spoilers review for the first half of the season. Go check it out if you haven't done so already. Matt Reeves was asked if the exploration of Sophia Falcone as a character in Arkham was brought over from the Arkham Asylum spin-off series that was reportedly dropped by HBO. No, that story came from what Lauren LaFranc came up with as the backstory for Sophia Falcone. And really, what was chosen and what was used was solely driven by what would tell Sophia's story. The character that you're meeting was actually formed through the crucible that is this experience in Arkham. And guys, I can definitely back that up from what I've seen. Don't worry, I'm not going to get into any spoilers, but it is most certainly a crucible that she goes through. The way that they show Arkham and the madhouse that it is, and it truly is what Matt Reeves said when teasing the Arkham Asylum spin-off show, a haunted house. Like, even when Sophia's walking around and you hear the mad noises in the background, it's just absolutely nuts. So I can't wait for you guys to see that, and it makes me want this Arkham spin-off show. Clark then casually confirms that he and Reeves are continuing to develop another spin-off series, but her ideas and the story elements that relate to Sophia Falcone, those are all new ideas for her and have nothing to do with the other series that we're continuing to do. So this really takes me back to that Hollywood Reporter article way back when. I've brought this up several times over the past year or so since it came out. I think it's been quite a while. And that said that Matt Reeves was meeting with other writers and directors. They got a scoop. This is a major trade, the Hollywood Reporter, and they were talking about spin-off series to do with Rogues Gallery antagonists such as Scarecrow, Professor Pig, and Clayface. And Clayface has been something that, you know, has been a bit of smoke behind the fire for a long time. Is there actual fire there? We don't know. But it does make me think that those whispers back then from the Hollywood Reporter, you know, still ring to be true. That Matt Reeves has genuinely, and is, as of right now, this is a very recent article, as in days old, is still, you know, getting the green light from, you know, way up top at DC Studios that, hey, yeah, you can explore other series for your Batverse spin-off shows like The Penguin if you want to do so. Granted, it still needs to be greenlit and it needs to be approved, but the fact is, he can entertain exploring other series that we're continuing to do. Now, what is this series, guys? What is this series possibly going to be? Now, the article continues to say, interestingly enough, in the same roundtable with the Penguin executive producers Matt Reeves and Dylan Clark, the creatives were asked about the possibility of a legal drama series following Harvey Dent. While the two did not give a definitive answer, Reeves noted that the journalist was thinking certainly in the way that our conversations have gone. Wow. So I wonder if, you know, in that round table where there's a, you know, bunch of journalists there, you know, you have Dylan Clark and Matt Reeves, you know, taking questions. They heard someone else say that, and when Matt Reeves and Dylan Clark heard it, I wonder if they were like, crap, like, they've kind of maybe got it nearly on the head. So the fact that he didn't say, oh, you know, well, we'll talk about that when the time comes, you know, if we eventually pursue the series that we're working on, another spin-off show, he could have answered it like that, but he didn't. Instead, he was like, thinking certainly in the way that our conversations have gone. So the fact that he answered it in that way means that, I'm not saying they hit the nail on the head, but it's certainly in the area of where a spin-off series could go. So what we now know is that we have the Penguin, we have the Batman Part 2, there are other spin-off series that they're looking to do legitimately. For the longest time, the theories have been things like the Arkham show, as we know, but that is something we're putting to the wayside for now. A Catwoman spin-off, which, you know, I'm down for, but I don't know the necessity of that right now, believe it or not, because I know you could say, what about the necessity of the Penguin series? I would argue very necessary in the grand scheme of the story and greenlighting spin-off shows. It does make sense if there's a huge power vacuum in Gotham and there's a huge gang war and there's going to be a new kingpin rising to the top of the, you know, ruling the criminal underbelly. It makes sense. That necessitates, I'm not saying you have to do it, because Matt Reeves, funnily enough, was actually going to do it at the beginning of the movie before he actually got an 8-episode show, which would have been really interesting to see how condensed that would have been in the first part or first act of the Batman Part 2. But before I tangent too much, all I'm saying is the Penguin makes sense in my head, but a Selina Kyle series for 6 to 8 episodes, whatever you want to say, I'm not saying there isn't a story that you could tell me down in the comments below that you could suggest, but I'm just saying maybe it does make more sense. Let's just say, for example here, in terms of what Matt Reeves entertained, a legal drama series following Harvey Dent does make a lot more sense to me. So my idea about that really fits in line with the vision that I've roughly had in terms of how after Gil Colson had his head blown off by the Riddler, we were getting, and we are getting, a new district attorney in Gotham. More teasers on that a little bit later, trust me. It's a very interesting video today. I love talking about this. You guys know me, man. I'm so exhilarated to be getting nuggets like this, and it's only going to get better. Like, this is the pebble going down the mountain. The avalanche is going to come. But anyway, I've always thought that Harvey Dent will be introduced in Part 2. Why would you introduce another DA after Gil Colson that isn't Harvey Dent to just have Harvey Dent shadow the newest DA? You may as well make it Harvey Dent. Do you know what I mean? But I've also always said as well that I would actually prefer to have Harvey Dent not transform into Two-Face in the second movie. Let it be a slow burn. Like, do that in Part 3 if you want to. I don't care. I would rather have Harvey Dent not repeat the Dark Knight's story in that sense, like, hey, here's the White Knight of Gotham, oh crap, he's fallen, especially with everything else that Part 2 might have to get into. So you see where I'm going with this. If the potential legal drama series following Harvey Dent, of which Matt Reeves says, oh, you're thinking certainly in the way that our conversations have gone, that makes sense. If Harvey Dent is introduced in Part 2, doesn't transform into Two-Face, his transformation could be further delved into in a bridged series from Part 2 to Part 3. Think about it. After the repercussions of Part 1, you had a series which you're about to get this week with the Penguin, which is a very understandable story to get into, given the power vacuum and the status quo in Gotham as of the end of the Batman. After the end of Part 2, who knows what's going to happen, but let's just say we get Harvey Dent introduced. There's other repercussions that happen by the ending of Part 2 that ripple out or will ripple out into Part 3, but you have a continued series of Harvey bridging Part 2 to Part 3. I think that makes sense. So obviously, I know it sounds like I'm getting a bit way over my head with saying, oh, this is a Harvey Dent series. I'm not trying to do that, but I think it's very encouraging that Matt Reeves, when being asked about the possibility of a legal drama series following Harvey Dent, that he could have said, like, oh, well, you know, that's an interesting idea, but, you know, we'll tell you more when, you know, we get closer. He could have just literally ignored it and given a polite answer like that while entertaining it still. But instead he said and gave us a clue that while it might not be a literal legal drama series following Harvey Dent, I have to think that, considering that the conversations have gone that way, it's somewhere in that direction, and that makes sense to me. So let me know what you think of that, or if you think, okay, it might be something to do with Harvey Dent, but it might be something about this or that, or something else in that area. But I'm absolutely over the moon that, and it just proves even more what I've been saying the whole time to all of the naysayers, that James Gunn is literally very aware of the Batverse, and not only is he aware of it, but he wants the success of the Batverse, and he's going to let it continue to thrive. I mean, a little side note here, we have Dylan Clark say that James Gunn is all in for Matt Reeves' Batman epic crime saga. The only conversation Matt and I had with James and Peter were that they loved the Batman, They loved that we'd already been in production with the Penguin, and they were all in on what we were doing. So for me, the validation feels so sweet there, and I just hope that the Batverse continues to be successful, because one thing I will say, you know, because if part 2 flops at the box office, then, you know, that might be a bit of a like a, oh, are we going to explore this as much? But for the time being, there's no reason that they wouldn't for now. Do you know what I mean? So it's still, regardless, very, very encouraging. So up next, we now need to talk about some other details. You know, people have asked me for the longest time, Boba, why do you call it a trilogy? Why? How you don't know that? Like, Matt Reeves should make 4 films, 5 films, 6 films. And I've always explained it, that Matt Reeves had an interview years and years ago where he acknowledged that a trilogy was the plan. You can't guarantee that, similar to what I just said about the box office, but that is the plan. And with Collider here, Reeves reaffirmed that his plan for a trilogy remains intact, despite some recalibrations along the way. Weintraub asked if the trilogy was still in the cards after the success of the first film. Yes, that is still the plan, Reeves said, confidently. I mean, it's sticking very closely to the path we envisioned. There you have it. The Batman is a trilogy. Period. But this next part is the thing that really, really excited me, because it's something that I've been saying for ages. And I'm not trying to be like, oh, I hate to say I told you so, but I'm just trying to, like, remind you of our previous discussion series, if you know what I mean. So, oh man, Reeves confirms that the Penguin picks up a week after the events of the first film and tells a fairly compressed story itself. When asked about how long a period the series covers, Reeves said, the story plays out over the next weeks that takes you towards the end of the year. We don't play Christmas or New Year's, but we're getting there. So I've always said that I think the Batman trilogy will be a fairly condensed story in terms of exploring the psychology of Bruce Wayne unfolding. Now, what I have admitted to is that I think if there's going to be any time jump at all, or like a large time jump, it would be between part 2 and part 3. Now, I'm not quite saying The Dark Knight to The Dark Knight Rises, where, you know, Christian Bale's Batman was out of action for years and years and years. But what I'm saying is that I just didn't, you know, a lot of people always ask me, oh, it could be a couple of years, you know, it'd be cool to see Bruce at year 5 or something like that. But I was like, understanding everything, and I've done a lot of research that Matt Reeves has said. After the Batman Part 1, I couldn't imagine Part 2 picking up so much time later. We'd be wondering what he's done in between then, what developments has he had, whereas Matt Reeves has always described it as wanting to really show that growth in Bruce. So I always felt like at absolute most, it would be months, as in a handful of months. But part 2 to part 3, you could still show that psychological journey of Bruce Wayne growing. But maybe in part 3, you want to show a bit of a different development and where there's even more experience. But yet again, I wouldn't be surprised if part 3 still takes place only a short amount of time after part 2. And with that, I've also always said that I think we're probably going to be in for a Batman Part 2 winter story. Now, how did I know that? Well, I didn't know that for a fact, but it just kind of made sense to me when thinking about Wednesday, November 6th. That's when the movie ends. The Penguin series picks up a week after the events of the first film. You're still in November. I've always felt that the Penguin series would take place over a short amount of time. You know, there's a gang war. It's going to be fairly, you know, just very point of view driven, grinding your way to the top, going through all the crucible and trial and tribulations that Penguin needs to go through. I don't think there's going to be like a 4 months later kind of thing happening. And here we have my theories kind of confirmed by Matt Reeves saying that the story plays out over the next weeks. That will take you kind of past November towards the end of the year, but they don't play Christmas or New Year's, but they're getting there. So you know what that means. The Batman Part 2, as Matt Reeves has hinted recently, the ending of the Penguin series kind of literally kind of goes right into it in terms of how it impacts the beginning of the movie. So I genuinely think, ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, the Batman Part 2 will be a Christmas time period of Gotham movie. I can't confirm that. For all I know, it's December 27th, right before New Year's, but you get my point. So I can't wait. I don't want to get overhyped here, because I know some people will say, Boba, you know, don't expect this, that, and that. I always say don't get expectations up, but entertain it for fun kind of thing. But what I will say is, since we know that Christmas and New Year's doesn't happen in the Penguin or by the finale, but we're getting there, then I really do think we're going to have Christmas decorations in Gotham. It's going to look gorgeous. People have wanted snow for the longest time. I'm hopeful about that, but I'm not too savvy with how hard that would be for production, if you know what I mean. I know you can create fake snow, but if you're doing a whole movie set in winter and you want snow in Gotham, that would be pretty, quite a task to do, but I'm sure they can easily pull it off. But I'm, very, very confident about the winter look to Gotham. I mean, winter ends like March 20-something. So, yes, we're getting Batman Part 2, Winter Gotham. Basically, I would say low-key confirmed here. Now, I can't confirm if that's going to give us a very snowy-looking Gotham. It can still be a very cold, dreary, wintry, Christmas decorations kind of Gotham. They might show it snowing several times throughout the movie, but it might not settle in every area of Gotham, that kind of thing. But I would be happy enough with that. Do you know what I mean? Seeing snow out the window of a scene or two. Maybe snow has turned to sludge in a scene and it washes away, but it would still add such a gorgeous aesthetic to Matt Reeves' Gotham with Greg Fraser's cinematography. Like, don't even get me started, man. Now, no, just because it's winter in Gotham, I don't think this means Mr. Freeze. And no, by the way, I'm not like absolutely convinced we're getting the Court of Owls in Part 2. We don't know the villain right now, despite all the entertaining of theories we've done recently on the channel. And talking about aesthetics of the Batman, the article continues to say that even though he's feeling the vibes of the anamorphic aesthetic, Reeves adds that he doesn't necessarily want to keep it uniform the entire way through. Still several months out from production, a director has plenty of time to see how things fall into place and how pieces like casting will influence his final decision. But that's not to say that I only want to continue doing just what we're doing. We need to continue to grow. As the story evolves, I think aspects visually of the movie should change. And I kind of talk like that because a lot of people, you've seen the logos for a long time. The Batman Part 1, red. It's gorgeous, right? And there's been logos for the Batman Part 2 with a lot of us wanting winter, and now we're basically getting it, for that blue logo. Now, I'm not guaranteeing that, but I love how Matt Reeves says, as the story evolves, I think aspects visually of the movie should change. So not only, the logo, but the actual movie itself, that would be really cool. But I am hoping, I do love the red logo, and I really wouldn't be disappointed if it stayed red, but I would love kind of like a little kind of blue hue to it for like a wintry Batman Part 2 story. But he continues to say here, but I also think it has to be a part of the same DNA. Of course, when you look at classic trilogies, it's not as if you go, well, that was just another format altogether. Like, I want it to feel of a piece. But I think the idea that you're trying to push yourself in other ways, if that opportunity presents itself in a way that doesn't feel self-conscious, then I would be open to that. As we go through explorations, when we're fully into prep and we start casting all of that, we'll go through camera tests as we always do, and we'll look at all that again. So I would love to know any and all thoughts on, visuals for the Batman Part 2 with winter in mind. Now, up next, with regards to Batman in the Penguin, we actually have Matt Reeves say himself that Robert Pattinson will not appear in the Penguin. When I'm doing a Batman story, Batman and Bruce is going to be the main point of view. To explore the Rogues Gallery, they could never get the real estate we can do in a series. So Batman is in this show only as a sense that he's a presence. You're aware that all of these events began because of the Riddler, but the Riddler doesn't appear and Batman doesn't appear. Rob is not going to be in the show. I'd rather take the band-aid off now. We did talk about all that, but we felt the best way to do this was to go on a grand exploration of a guy grabbing for power in this moment. Now, we've talked about this quite a few times recently, with me talking about what Lauren LaFranc said. The writing was on the wall that Pattinson wouldn't be in the series. Again, I've seen 4 episodes. I haven't seen Batman. I didn't expect him to be in the series. I've always said I thought at best, absolute best, there might be a scene towards the end. Again, similar scene to the Iceberg Lounge in the first film, just kind of establishing the new power dynamic in Gotham between Batman and Penguin, now as Kingpin. But here we have it. No Batman in the Penguin series. It doesn't actually upset me. I do get people's frustrations with it, but I am on the side of what they're kind of explaining here. It's a Penguin series. Batman can't be everywhere. It is, I'm not just trying to quote a movie here, but it is a big big city. It doesn't mean that Batman isn't getting involved in the gang war or keeping tabs on it. And my explanation of this as well, from my perspective, is that, you know, Batman, if anything, could only do so much in the gang war. Again, I think he probably is in certain areas, but at the same time, it is literally an inevitability in terms of the shift of power in Gotham. Someone will end up on top, and Batman kind of needs to wait for that to happen. I'm not saying, like, you know, how dare you, Boba, say Batman's just going to wait and, you know, eat some popcorn while this goes down. No, but in the large scheme of things, you have to wait to see where the chips fall before you can now execute your plan to, you know, maybe tackle the new power in Gotham that is Oz Cobblepot. Do you know what I mean? Batman can try and, like, you know, like, troll on the chessboard and knock over a few pawn pieces and be like, oh no, like, no gangs are gonna come out on top. Do you know what I mean? But that's not realistic. Like, somebody is still going to come out on top of the crime. So I think, in my headcanon, that he is interrupting some criminal gang activities. He is most certainly keeping tabs on who is ending up where on the chessboard, on the game board, and then he's going to tackle it from there on out. But also, I'm not saying that's all he's doing. He's keeping tabs, he's doing all of that, but also just being Batman in the city post-Riddler floods. It's, I think, all of that in context, plus more context that we could get into for a whole hour here if we wanted to, is fine in my mind. And how you're just seeing the point of view perspective of Penguin amongst his own crucible as he claws to the top of the criminal activity as Kingpin in Gotham. Now, up next, ladies and gentlemen, we need to talk about a very interesting teaser that came out from the Penguin series marketing, if you will, because the Penguin did like a little takeover of New York, and they did little merch drops at various locations across the city. And as a result of that, we got a newspaper that teases a bunch of new details. Now, what I want to say here is that, similar to what I view as the prequel novel for the Batman, this is, like, I would advise as loose canon. When it comes to newspaper stuff, especially for a marketing campaign, I wouldn't take it as literally this is what's going to happen in the Batman Part 2. But at the same time, it could be like, oh, this is actually kind of what's happening. We're getting little clues as to events that have transpired, specifically relating to the new DA. Where is Batman? Like, all of this could play in, but at the same time, it really might not. Do you know what I mean? I trust I get my point across. You can't take it as this is literally the word of God, you know, but let's entertain it anyway. So, we have some clues here. One, that Gotham has a new DA. The picture on the newspaper on the right is implying that Batman, I don't know if I would say is missing, but he hasn't been around. There's a riot in Blackgate, and believe it or not, Gothamites, certain Gothamites have created a Riddler-inspired escape room. And the headline is, Riddler-inspired escape room raises eyebrows. Oh, man, like, it doesn't actually surprise me, by the way, like, because, you know, somebody in Gotham after the bombs, there would be some kind of crazy person who's like, oh, mate, I've got a business idea. Let you know, in Uptown, an Uptown loft is offering teenagers the chance to solve their way out of a mini-scale Gotham before water tanks flood the facility. Oh, God, man. But let's talk about the new DA. Plaintiff's case, full of holes. DA tells jurors. Now, the person who wrote this is Alexander Knox, which is a cool reference to the reporter. But the thing is, it doesn't say Harvey Dent. This is what I mean about the newspaper, but there is a little kind of pun that kind of hints. So the article says in the newspaper, is our legal system dented beyond repair? You knew whoever wrote this was, like, literally hinting that the new DA was Harvey Dent. By Alexander Knox, is our legal system dented beyond repair? Harvey Dent. By the way, yeah, post-Gil Colson, new mayor-elect Bella Real, we've got a new DA. That's something we just know is going to happen. Hopefully, fingers crossed, that's Harvey Dent, especially after the spin-off kind of acknowledgement from Reeves earlier, saying that's where conversations have gone. So that's the argument the Gotham City District Attorney is making to jurors this afternoon in response to the explosion of charges clogging city courts. And yeah, you can imagine, after the corruption that got exposed after the Batman Part 1, there is an explosion of charges clogging the courts. It must be insane. Claims of corruption may have taken a toll on public trust, but a DA claims the only way out is through. But an interesting part is a little cartoon drawing in the newspaper that implies that Batman's not really been about. You have like a drawing of Jeffrey Wright's Gordon there and another officer with the bat signal lit up, graffiti saying vengeance, no more lies, welcome to hell. And the other police officer is saying to Gordon, right next to the bat signal, it's been weeks, sir. As though saying, we've been lighting this bat signal for weeks, plural weeks, and he's still not coming. So this is something I'm very hesitant to like believe, because I don't think this is going to be a situation, because I've seen some people look into this being like, oh, this is how they're explaining Batman's not in the Penguin series because it's been weeks, sir, like he's missing. He's missing the whole time during the Penguin series. I don't think this is that. I really, really, really don't. This is why I'm hesitant to take this newspaper as literal canon. You could argue that Batman's just so busy that he hasn't gone to the signal, but I admit that's a bit of copium from me, because Bruce would still, liaise with Gordon if he lit the bat signal up. But again, I, believe it or not, don't think Bruce would have, after the first movie, after literally talking about needing to be more, being hope for the people of Gotham, that when the bat signal's lit up, he hasn't turned up week after week after week for weeks. That would just contradict completely the ending of the first film. So, do you see where I'm going with this? I don't know if that one's so in it. Maybe there's something to it with, as I said, entertaining how Batman's just so busy. He's trying to do this, that, the other. I don't know. Would love any thoughts on that. And talking about returning characters, we have gone over stuff like this before with Barry Keoghan. Like, he was asked months and months back about his possibility of returning, and he answered in such a way where he absolutely had conversations and knew, and he gets very, I would say, fidgety and a bit timid when answering this. He's always had a history of this, even before the Batman came out, when we were cottoning on to him being the Joker. He gets very awkward about it, and he literally, covers his mouth. In that previous one, he eventually was like, my smile says it all, which was basically him saying he knows he's coming back. In another interview here with Variety, I believe, they ask him, and he's covering his whole face, getting very awkward. What's up with Joker in Batman Part 2? He's like, I can't say much. And he's, they're joking around saying like, oh, I got the green light. You can tell me everything. But then Barry continues to say, yeah, hey, I can't say much, but we'll see where that goes. That's all I can say. Again, and he just is getting shyer and shyer and shyer. So, we're going to see Joker in Part 2, undoubtedly. I still don't know what role he's going to play, especially now with the developments of the Arkham series maybe not being a thing, because I had a vision for where that could go and facilitate a breakout. But I still think that could be maintained in terms of how he's like a background character in terms of scenes in the film, like a very much smaller subplot that is building up for a bigger Part 3. So imagine scenes in Part 2 akin to Part 1, in that, okay, you get this scene at the end of the movie in Part 1, but now imagine in Part 2 you have a scene like that, but you also have another scene, the length of the deleted scene included in Part 2, that is cooking along that storyline for, Gotham Loves a Comeback story with Riddler, Joker, maybe Harvey Dent being Two-Face in Part 3, like a true kind of multiple rogues gallery threat for Batman to face potentially. But maybe the Part 2 role is still small, but just cooking along that storyline, knowing he's gonna really give Batman a rough time once he's out of Arkham in Part 3. I don't know, that's just like the rough vision I have, but yeah, we know Barry's coming back for Joker in Part 2, absolutely. And Matt Reeves himself even got asked this in an interview with Jonathan Blomberg from Movie Zine, and he said, and we might hopefully get to see him revisit the role sometime when talking about Barry, and Matt Reeves is kind of smiling and like, who knows? Yeah, who knows? So once again, more blatant affirmation there that, yeah, who knows? He might be, he's basically coming back. But ladies and gentlemen, that is where I'm going to end today's video. Another long, rambly Batverse detailed dump. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the details, the conversations we had surrounding it, the theories, the speculation, and now what's left is to leave the floor open to you. Let me know any and all thoughts down in the comments below. Then we've got the Penguin breakdown to do. It is getting into a good time for content on the channel as we get towards the end of the year, so Can't wait, guys. Absolutely can't wait for what's to come. But yeah, I'm going to love you and leave you. So again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. And I'll see you, fellow Bat family, in the next video. Goodbye.